Hey friends, we're so glad you're here and have tuned into What Makes You Come Alive podcast. We're your hosts, Gabe the Girl
and Michaela McGee, and we're here to explore what it would look like to take ownership of and change the narratives of our lives to live a life fully alive.
Woohoo! We are back with one more episode with a special guest, and we are so excited to have yet another guest. Rachel is here with us, and this is Gabe's friend, so I'm going to let her take it away with a little intro.
Awesome. Hey guys, it's Gabe the Girl. Welcome back. I'm so excited to introduce to you such a special human in my life, somebody who constantly inspires me and has inspired me from the moment I met her. This is Rachel. And Rachel, I'd love if you just share a little bit with our listeners about yourself.
Yeah, well, I am technically speaking a nanny, but that's not what I really like to call myself. I'm a writer and recipe developer and curious person about all the things in the world. I like to say that there's, even if I had 6 lifetimes, it wouldn't be enough for being all the things that I want to be. So yeah, I just love living life. I'm married. I live in Chesapeake, Virginia. And yeah, I know Gabe through coaching. I've known her for a few years and she's one of the best.
Oh my gosh. Words of affirmation. I feel loved. Yes. Okay, Rachel. Yeah, Rachel and I met, how many years ago has it been now?
It's got to be like 4 or 5.
Gosh.
It was before I worked at the restaurant because you, through coaching, you were like encouraging me to like do something I actually wanted to do. And so I worked for a time as a pastry chef, and that was like 3 years ago. So
yeah, I'll have everybody know I tell Rachel's story quite often, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. And I don't think I've ever told you that, but when I start to explain what life coaching is to people, they're often like, I don't get it. And I'm like, okay, well, let me give you this example. I have this wonderful friend, and she's working 2 part-time jobs, things that she kind of enjoyed, but it wasn't really what she was passionate about. And she wanted to like step into working full time, doing something that she was passionate about. We worked through like what that looked like and what steps it might take to get there. And she was also, like, I want to move out of my house. I'm living with my family, I'm in my mid to late 20s or whatnot. And now look at you. Like, I mean, I know that like she went from there to what I tell people is like, she went from, doing all that to moving into working at a really cool restaurant and learning some incredible skills that have led you to where you are now. So,
yeah, I kind of tell people it was like, being paid to go to culinary school. I was only there for a year, but I got like the full education and then took that with me. So
yeah,
you're definitely instrumental in like pushing me into that.
Thanks, babe. I appreciate that. Much love. So now that people know a little bit about the foundations of Rachel, tell us a bit about what makes you come alive. What are the things about Rachel and in Rachel's life that light her up?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I would say like the primary things that I find myself just consistently lit up by are like just investing in living a beautiful life, which sounds really vague, but I literally mean that, from just like making my home beautiful. And cooking is a big one for me because it's something that we have to do anyway. Everybody has to eat, and a good meal can be the difference between like a day that looks just like all the other days or a day that's exciting. And I'm big on exciting things. I love food because I love, like, obviously I love food because I love eating food, but also I just love that it connects people. It breaks down barriers between them, like, because once again, everybody has to eat. I think that connections are really made quickly over food. So that's something I can like nerd out about all day. And thankfully I married a guy who also loves food. Yeah, I love traveling. I love storytelling. I'm a writer. I'd love to do like recipe, food writing, kind of all of that like professionally. I do freelance writing on the side, but it's not something that consistently is like my career right now, financially speaking. But I also think the things that don't make us money are equally, if not more valuable. Not everything has to be lucrative to be enjoyable or worthwhile. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like quality time with people and doing the things I love, being out in nature, like all of those things are things that light me up. New ideas, you know, I love reading nonfiction because there's so many new things to think about and they're all true. I honestly don't have patience a lot of time for reading fiction because I'm like, I want to know about all the things there are to do. Like I would rather read about, you know, some random dude who went to China and found an endangered goldfish than, you know, a fantasy book or something. So anyway, there's your very long answer.
I love it.
Yeah, girl, you are speaking right to my heart. I love being in the kitchen too. Like I try and explain this to some of my friends and they're just like, but why would you hang out in there? Because it's fun. And also I love that it does connect people. Like I love sharing my creations with other people, being around the table with people, having conversations. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I mean, I'm a Christian and I feel like there's a holy place surrounding food too, because if you look in scripture, like so many of Jesus's miracles surrounded food, like, or involved food in some way. And there's something there. There's definitely something there.
Yeah.
And I think it's true.
Yeah. I really do believe that there's like when we put that intention into the food that we're making, it's like, you know, the difference between fast food and slow cooked meals and all that kind of stuff. But like when you spend that time in the kitchen, really pouring love into it, like I know that it's so silly, but like sometimes I do just imagine myself like sprinkling a little bit of extra love on whatever it is that I'm making, because then I know that like that's going into somebody's body and nourishing their mind, body, and soul. Like it's so much bigger than just physical nourishment. It gets to be sacred and a very sacred experience too when we share it with other people.
And it's really like, I feel like it's a special thing that I also feel like I'm a defender of as well, because I understand like another thing that I'm passionate about is just like the intersection between our food and our bodies. And like, I know that food is hard for people sometimes. I know that people have complicated relationships with food. And I'm really passionate about like championing the freedom of just like enjoying and savoring life, and obviously taking good care of our bodies, but also realizing that our bodies are good because they were made by God. And I mean, Gabe and I were talking about this recently.
Yeah.
Even when they're experiencing brokenness, they're still good because God doesn't make bad things. And so, you know, even when we're mega frustrated with them or we're finding them complicated or whatever, they're still good, and calling them good and nourishing ourselves well and making those meals for ourselves is an act of defiance sometimes, like contrary to how we might feel about our bodies in the moment. We're like, nope, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to feed you something, you know. It's important.
It really is. And I think even like when we experience that brokenness, when it is so painful for us in a lot of ways, it's like, okay, can you just slow down and figure out what's really happening? Like not surface level, but like dig into it. And it's even in that slowing down and pausing to like actually listen to our bodies that I feel like we can have that super meaningful connection on a soul level too. Recognizing, like you said, that like it is, our bodies are good by nature, you know, they're not broken by nature. And so what is it that we can give to ourselves, not necessarily just take away, because I feel like our society is so full of like, remove this, remove that, whatever, but like, what can we actually give to our bodies to nourish it? And not just on a physical level, like where does it get to be on a bigger scale, truly healing?
Yeah, for sure. And like, even it's funny because like my Instagram account, my social media is pretty much entirely food. And but I also write about like just that relationship of just like being kind to ourselves, the same way that we would sit and make a meal for a loved one, making a meal for ourselves, for my single friends, making sure that they're sitting and making a meal for themselves, for anyone. You deserve that. You don't have to earn the right to that. And, I was at this art show this morning, and this girl walked up to me as I was like flipping through these photographs, and she was like, "You don't know me at all, but I follow you on social media." And she just got tears in her eyes, and she was like, she was like, "I just feel like I just want to say thank you, because you're a voice in my life that's saying things that nobody else is saying." And like you're saying words about my body that I don't hear from anyone else. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like it's important. Like I think I'm just sharing food and pictures of food, and really there's like a deeper, I don't know, like a permission that I think in a way that I'm able to share with people just through just showing up and being like, let's just enjoy our life and not worry so much about withholding and just subtracting, like you said. Like, what can we give thoughtfully to our bodies, to the people we love? And clearly that lights me up. I'm passionate about that, but it's important.
It is, first of all, celebrity status. That's amazing. Second, I think that you brought up a hugely important point there, that like when we do what we love, what we're really passionate about, what lights us up, that gives other people permission to then find what they're passionate about or live in a way that really lights them up. Like it's this beautiful ripple effect when we actually stand firm in that.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a natural transition for the second question. What is it that inspires and encourages you to live a life that's fully alive?
Oh man. I think definitely number one, seeing other people living their lives passionately, because again, it's that permission, it's that shaking you out of your comfort zone to realize like, wait a second, this person is showing up and doing what they love. That means I can show up and do what I love. So that's definitely one thing. I would say I'm also just inspired by just creativity in general. I love consuming things that other people have created. Not speaking of food in this instance,
but it could be food, right?
It could be food.
It could be food.
Books and writing and art, and I just think it's beautiful. I think creativity in general is something that inspires me to live fully, because I think it's like not necessarily a must for life. I mean, I think it is, but like it's not water or oxygen or one of these other things, but it adds so much beauty to life. And I think that people can't create a lot unless they are living fully. And so I'm very inspired when I see people making things, or I'm like, I read a book that was so good, and I'm like, wow, that person captured this feeling and conjured that feeling inside me, or whatever it is. That's inspiring to me, because it's like, I want that. I want to create those things, not like in a jealous way, but just in a way that's like, yeah, this is inspirational to me. So yeah, definitely that. But it's not even just looking at what other people are doing. It's also just when I start settling down enough to savor my life, that's when I start getting inspired to live fully as well. My husband helps me slow down a lot, because I am an Enneagram 7 to the max, 8, just like, let me do all the things, and then I can make me zoom through all the beautiful parts of my life, because I'm like, what's next? What's the next fun idea? What are we doing next?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are
what does it look like to slow down and savor, or kind of reflect on where you are?
For me, that definitely means just in a practical way. For me, that means keeping a journal. I am a an external processor who's not a verbal processor. So I'm not a speaky words processor person, but I can't accomplish anything by holding it all inside. So when I slow down long enough to write, I'm able to like understand what I'm feeling. And that is something I'm learning a lot right now, is that showing up fully, living fully involves the full spectrum of recognizing all of your emotions, not avoiding the painful ones or the difficult ones. So that's like a practical way to slow down. I think for me, I give myself the blessing of not overscheduling, not filling every crack full of things. I tend to struggle with FOMO. I work like 55 hours a week as a nanny. And so the time that I have left, I'm like, I want to cram it full of things. And then sometimes I get to the end of a weekend and I'm exhausted. I've had fun. I had a blast.
Yeah.
But I was like, not here for a long time, here for a good time. And I definitely have learned the rhythm of trying to incorporate the rhythm of more of a Sabbath mindset here and there, of just like resting well, learning what that looks like. I like to water my house plants. I like to buy fresh flowers and have them in my house and stick around long enough to enjoy them.
Yes.
Yeah, just stuff like that. Just going at a slower pace, because I am Speedy Gonzalez over here.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned rest, because I think that it's so important that as we reflect on and look at our lives and how we want to live fully alive, living fully alive sounds very active. It sounds like, yes, we're going to go do all of the things. And I know, that feeling as an Enneagram 7. And I know she's a firework, she wants to go and be with the people and do the things. And, oh, there's a food festival and there's an art show and there's, these people to go have coffee with. But it's those quiet moments, and those moments where you said you got to like sit down and reflect and savor, and those moments are important, because if we don't have moments of rest, we are not going to be able to give as much to those things that we know that we want to do, that make us feel fully alive.
And I don't know, I feel like the deeper sense of freedom of like no time constraints for me is those rare hours that I get alone by myself, that I'm just like, there was no plan for this time. This is amazing. It gives me the illusion of having all of the time with no plans. I did that this morning before the art show I went to. I took a book and I sat on a bench for like an hour in the shade, and I was reading, and I was like, this is the life. I'm happy if I die on this bench, This is great.
That sounds so peaceful.
It was great. It rarely happens, but that was a good hour.
Yeah, but it clearly lit you up too. And I think even what you were saying, like when Gabe first asked the question, what does it look like for you to slow down? And you were saying journaling, and also the fact that writing is something that lights you up. Like, it's in the slowing down too, that we are doing something that lights us up. And then that girl who talked to you and told you, how much your words mean to her, or whatever it was, like, it was because you slowed down long enough to write out something that is meaningful. You're not just like throwing up pictures of food or whatever, but there's intention behind each of your posts. And you have to slow down to receive the creativity, or to receive the inspiration, which I just learned. This is amazing, you guys. The word inspiration is in spirit, like, is divine. It is like, when you are inspired, it comes from the divine. And I love that image, that anytime that we're inspired, it comes from above. It comes from, outside of us. And it's our duty to follow that inspiration and give it out. But we have to slow down in order to receive that inspiration, and then to be able to cultivate the creativity, the creative release of giving it out. It's a beautiful cycle. But I mean, I hear you on wanting to do all the things. I also love resting, like, would nap every single day if I could. I do nap every single day because I can't, actually. That's the reality. It's amazing.
There you go.
Michaela kind of taught me how to rest when we were in Spain. I was like, first time living abroad and, living in Spain, land of the siesta, where everything shuts down for about 3 or 4 hours mid-afternoon. But she'd be like, you know what? I think my choice is to go rest. I need to go rest. And I'm like, what? There's the beach and there's like, friends and there's, restaurants and coffee. And, like here I am like wanting to do all the things and just really didn't know how to rest. She was one of my first examples of how to rest.
Resting well is a gift. And honestly, like, I think it would be easier to do in a country that just everyone takes a rest, because for me, girl, I can remember clear as day as a kid on Christmas Day, my mom would make us take naps because we were up at 4 a.m. And I was laying in bed, not sleepy in the slightest, with the biggest FOMO because I wanted to play with my toys and I could hear the adults laughing downstairs and like, nap time gave me the full cringe until I was like 28. And like the last 2 years, I've been like, I would take a nap every couple months.
Well, I was 28. I love that.
Listen, naps are a glorious thing at this point in life.
Amen. Give me a siesta. So resting and slowing down is quite challenging, but talk about a few other challenges that you've faced when trying to pursue living a life where you feel fully alive.
Well, two that stick out to me is just like, whether it's on purpose or like voluntary or involuntarily, just having no margin in life. I'm in a season right now with my job where like, I know that I need to stay a little bit longer in this job, but the working 55, 60 hours a week is really, it's difficult for me to feel like I have time to do the things that make me fully alive. I come home, we're eating dinner by 8 p.m. I'm, making sure I get enough sleep so I'm in bed by 9:30. So there's like an hour and a half of each day that's mine, except for, the weekend. So like right now it's involuntary. But in other seasons it's been voluntary of just like speedily going through things. I think that is hard because so many of the things that light me up are things that currently can only happen or mostly happen in my spare time, which is not very spare. And that's not an excuse per se. I think one thing I've done recently is just try to spend a lot more time away from my phone. Excuse me. Because the other challenge is when something is difficult or whatever, I tend to distract myself and kind of self-soothe by distracting in some ways. Or it's like its own form of escapism because, sevens love to escape an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
And what's funny is like in escaping, we're not actually escaping to something better. We're just becoming more unable to show up fully to our life and fully embrace it and participate in it and all of these things. So I've really tried to like cut out the things that I distract myself with, whatever that is. So when I'm at work, it tends to be my phone because it's easy. I think for a lot of us, it tends to be our phones. So I've started actually going to the library a lot more, which is really kind of random, but I work really great with a deadline. And so I have found that reading is something that lights me up because it has a direct correlation to writing. And I will actually read if I know that this book has to be back in 2 weeks. And so that's like a weird, sneaky little way that I've tricked my brain into valuing that. And I feel so much more rested and, just fully kind of awake to my life when I'm cutting out those distractions. So I can still, if I picked a good biography or a travel writing or something, I can still like escape, but it's in a productive and like a way that adds to my life versus just kind of distracts me and takes me away. And then comparison, is I would say the third challenge. It's not one that I constantly fall into, but I can start feeling a measure of like imposter syndrome when I think of what I feel called to do, who I feel called to be versus where I currently am, like forgetting that it's like a process that's not always linear.
Oh yeah.
And so when I compare that to where somebody else is in their process, I think that can really hold me back, because then I end up feeling a little bit like, well, it's probably going to just take me forever to get there anyway. And then I don't take any of those action steps that would actually start accomplishing some of the things I want to do, you know? That one comes up every so often. It's not like my biggest one, but when it comes up, I'm like, oh, you sneaky little thing. You again.
You sneaky mom.
Sneaky mom.
Anybody's familiar with Vines? That's a throwback. Oh, girl, I hear you. I hear you on many of those challenges. But I love what you said about the limited time that you do have. And I think it's so important that when we do have our time constrained by many different commitments or obligations, or things that we need to do or that we have to do, that in those limited windows that we're using that time, that energy, that headspace wisely, right? Whether it means to slow down and recharge, whether it means to expand our minds by opening a good book. I love that you're in the library. That's wonderful. I have walked past the library here in my own city, and I've been like, oh, that's neat. I'll go in one day.
Go there.
One day I'll go in. You've inspired me. Maybe I should go into that library next week. Although I'm not sure I'll be able to read much because it's all.
I was gonna say, do they have books in English?
We should answer that question. That should be the question to answer. But I'm encouraged by your own. And I was just writing in my own journal a couple days ago. What does it look like to like renew my mind? And like, it's like putting my phone down. It's the easiest thing for me to reach for. And I could either numb out on, scrolling or, checking my email every 20 seconds, or I could really fill that, space with intentionally doing something that I know is contributing towards, better things to come, or to my own growth, or, it
really feels different mentally. Like I've noticed that is, I don't vilify social media at all. I think it's an amazing tool. I have a great community on Instagram, but the scrolling side of it is like detrimental for me, because I really feel like I lose some chutzpah for showing up to my life in direct proportion to how much I'm scrolling. And so I have just found that, like, rather than saying I'm going to leave Instagram for absolutely forever, I take breaks for like a weekend here and there. And but what I find is a lot better of a rhythm is just putting my phone away and picking up something I love doing. So it could be writing, or a book, or writing a letter to a friend, or something. And that might have to do with, like, I'm a very sensory oriented person. So, I can hold a book in my hands. I can, do an art project, like all of these things kind of, they just soothe me and provide rest for me. And I found that, like, I can shove that into my work day when my nanny kid's asleep and provide this little pool of like reclaimed rest even while I'm working for myself. And that has been a big game changer in like providing me the stamina to continue, seeing this job through for the rest of the time that I'm going to be there. So
yeah, that is huge. So, I mean, I feel like what you just said is like such an awesome tool to give people. Like, next time that you're reaching for your phone, what is it that inspires you, or what is it that gives you life that you could reach for instead? In addition to that, though, what piece of encouragement or nugget of wisdom can you give to anybody who's really looking to pursue a life that is fully lit up? I think you gave us a bunch in this episode.
It's true.
Mhm.
So many
Oh
nuggets.
man. I would just say something that has served me well in every season has just been showing up expectantly to your day
Mhm.
and just showing up fully and just being like, hey, this might not be the life circumstances I wish I have right now, but I'm going to 100% show up and be here and,
Mhm.
engage with my life as a main character, not the side character, which I know is like the
Yeah.
trendy thing to say right now, but
It
it's
is.
true.
It
Like,
is.
I've said that for a long time of just being like, this is actually my life.
Mhm.
It's my one life. I don't get 7 lives to be a paleontologist and a, costumer on a period historical, TV show and, all the other things I want to be,
Uh-huh. Just live vicariously through Ross. It's
you
fine.
know.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Ross from Friends.
yeah. But yeah, I would just say just showing up and just expecting abundance is something that I am consistently go back to, consistently challenging myself to. There's a quote, I'm going to butcher it, but it's from F. Scott Fitzgerald. And he says something about she expected great things to happen to her. And so they did. I really think that, not in any weird way, but like the more that we're on the lookout for cool things to happen in life, the more that we're on the lookout for opportunities and ideas and
Mhm.
connections, the more they show up. And I think they're always there. I just think it's having the perspective to recognize them. And so it's kind of a domino effect. I feel like if you start showing up with your eyes open, not on your screen, then you start noticing more things. And then those things lead you to other things. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is the best,
Yeah.
I'm living the best life. And you're like, yeah, it was there for the taking. And
Absolutely.
I woke up and took it.
Yes.
I think that that's such a tiny, subtle, massive thing that everybody can put into practice. Like
Yeah.
waking up every single day and asking yourself, what's the greatest thing that's going to happen to me today? Then all of a sudden you're on the lookout and like, who knows?
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. One of my favorite writers right now is Mari Andrew. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. She has a couple of books out, but she has a newsletter where she writes fun little essays. She travels the world and she's just very perceptive. And she offered up an exercise in one of her latest newsletters where she says, evidently, our first sense to wake up in the morning is our hearing. And so she said, before you even open your eyes in the morning, try to listen to what you can hear. And so not every single morning, but I try to like do that when I wake up. And it just immediately sort of just puts me in a frame of just being aware of what's happening in my life, like in my actual environment. And then I feel like that sets the tone as I continue throughout the day of just being aware instead of rolling over, opening my phone and getting sucked into the vortex that is the scroll for the day. If I'm laying there in bed, my alarm went off, I shut it off. And then I'm like, oh, I hear trucks. I hear rain. I hear an annoying bird, whatever it is. It really helps. It's so tiny. I forget about it a lot of mornings, but when I do it, I don't know, it just helps me tap into my actual life that I'm living versus where I want to be, because I'm a very future thinking person. And I can sometimes completely disconnect in a way where I get to the end of the day and I'm like, how am I feeling? I have no idea, because I just
happened.
I just zoomed through my day. There's another 24 hours I lived. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to.
Come on.
Just forget about my life. So
I love that. So good. Rachel, this has been such a lovely conversation. And I'm so glad that we are getting to share you with our listeners. And I can't wait for people to get to engage with your story, to resonate with your challenges, and to be encouraged through just being human. And in trying to live a life more fully alive and inspired. We are so glad to have had you on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I was so excited. I was like, wait, I get to hang out with Gabe and my new friend, Michaela. Cool.
New friend. Yeah.
New friends are the best.
That's really the only reason we have this podcast, is so that we each can make new friends.
Yes, this is true.
Well, I accept all friendship.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. Listeners, we're so glad that you're here. Friends, family, friends we haven't even met yet. If you guys want to get connected with Rachel, follow her on Instagram. We're going to link her details in the comment section, or on the description section on our YouTube and Instagram, wherever your platform of listening will be, Spotify, all that jazz, so you can get connected with her. If you have any questions for her, feel free to write us. You can follow us at Thrive Fully Alive on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like to share how this podcast episode impacted you, or other questions or thoughts you may have, you can write us at thrivefullyalive@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Gabe the Girl and
Michaela McGee. We will see you guys.
We'll see y'all
And
later. Oh, wait.
Rachel.
And Rachel.
And Rachel. Don't forget Rachel.
Okay, it's your moment. Shine.
Come around.
Everybody, come alive. Have a great week, y'all. Till next week. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to So What Makes You Come Alive. We're so inspired by the conversations we get to have with everyday humans about what lights them up and how to love the story they're living. We hope that you feel just as inspired too.
Interested in getting in on the inspiration? Click the link in our Instagram bio at Thrive Fully Alive and select the option for The One About You. Be our guest. Remember to tune in each week for a new episode where we explore what it looks like to get back to living our best story, where we hope that your favorite story becomes your own.